Leading the discussion today is Adam Sand, the CEO of Shopkick. Adam joined Shopkick from the law firm Jones Day and held various in-house roles, worked with eBay, PayPal, Ancestry, and he leverages this deep expertise representing large companies and defending about things like fraud with eBay to help CPGs and push Shopkick into new marketplaces and new offerings. In his spare time, you'll be excited to know that Adam's got a passion for teaching privacy law to future lawyers. Adam's going to be joined on stage today by Amir Ghodrati, Director of Market Insights for App Annie, the leading global provider of app market data. So without further ado, we welcome both Adam and Amir to the stage to kickstart a great discussion on how we compete for attention with today's connected consumer. Welcome and thank you, Adam and Amir.
Thank you so much, Anne. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We want to talk today about consumer attention. So more than anything else, we all know that we're chasing after this consumer attention. But what we really want to talk about is similar to what Erica talked about earlier today. We want to talk about the evolution of consumer attention. What's actually changing? And it's changing based upon technology, it's changing based upon content, and it's just changing based upon people's expectations. As she mentioned, people's brains are changing. The next generation is going to have different wiring than we have today. And I totally agree with that. So you might have seen this before. It's been around for a while now. Microsoft published a paper that mentioned that average human attention span is dropping dramatically. I'm not really sure that that's true, though. One of the things that I really like about being able to come and give talks like this is I actually get the chance to do some of the research behind this. And when you do the research behind this, it gets a little dodgy. But if you've seen this particular stat, then you've also seen the corollary stat that says that goldfish have average attention spans of 9 seconds. Definitely, right? We've all seen that, I'm sure. Yes. So I started researching that because, of course, when I'm researching one of them, I can just click a link and it'll immediately take me to a study. And I saw a goldfish as a method of understanding human understanding. And I wanted to understand, like, wow, how do they test people's goldfish attention span? It was really interesting to figure out. And I figured out, I don't think they do. What I found is that they actually study goldfish long-term memory. Also their spatial memory, which is very strange, right? But I spent a lot of time just researching those particular issues. And I almost forgot all about this, right? But I don't think that our attention span is actually dropping. I don't think that my attention span is only 8 seconds, maybe. I don't know how long I've been up there so far, right? But I do think that it's evolving, it's changing, and it's changing quite dramatically. And I think it's pretty obvious why it's changing, because there's so much more content and so many more ways that we can actually take that content in, that what's really changing about all of our attention spans is our filter. We're able to start looking at all of this information and all of this content, including advertising and including other content, and we're filtering it in our brains much more rapidly and differently than we ever have in the past. That's what's changing. And there's a lot of different really interesting examples of how people are doing this. And one of the most interesting examples, I think, is how we're using our phones. And so the phone app ecosystem is dramatically changing, and it's changing because of our attention span and also what we're using with it. Amir?
Yep. So we're going to make this a little interactive here. Just want to see show of hands. How many apps do you think we use in a month in the US? So let's start with, who thinks it's fewer than 15? All right, that was a little bit of a trick. We want people to raise their hands, but maybe not for that one. How about 15 to 24? All right, 25 to 34. All right, decent amount there. 35 to 44. And 45 plus. All right, pretty good distribution there. So, taking a step back, just think about all the ways that you're engaging with apps on your device, right? Even just throughout your daily life. Did you use an app to get here for ride sharing, right? Look up BART times, Muni times. Are you messaging with anyone in your social life or someone else from work? Are you using an app to take notes for this event? Are you using it to shop, check your bank account, send money to friends, order a coffee ahead before you get to the event, listen to music, open up the Spotify playlist for the event even. So the big thing is that we really need to think about how mobile is transforming all industries. And when you ask people how many apps they use or how often they're engaging with mobile, we're often not thinking about all the ways that we interact with it throughout our day. All these micro interactions that we have, whether it's while we're transitioning to work or while we have off periods where we're taking a break. And so for the US, we're actually using 35 to 44 apps per month. And even more than that, we have over 100 apps installed on our device. So another thing that frequently happens after we talk about this is everyone opens up their phone and starts counting all the apps that's on their device, right? And a lot of people in this room will actually have significantly more than 100. And that's related to the fact that there are so many good apps out there that we want to engage with, and also the amount of space that we actually have on our devices as well. And if you think about it from a daily perspective, we're using about 10 to 12 apps per day, and we're also spending about 3 hours per day in mobile. So that's 3 hours per day. That's a lot. That's one of the most dominant ways that we're spending our time is actually just looking at our mobile devices. And the fact that we're using mobile is very interesting, but there's a reason why people want us to spend so much time in apps. So this is a very specific example about how time spent in shopping apps highly correlates with e-commerce sales. The R here is 0.97. But the more time you're spending in a shopping app, the more sessions you're using, the more likely you are to purchase. But not only are you more likely to purchase, your basket size is going to be higher, your frequency of purchasing is going to be higher. There's significant value to driving people to that mobile app and that mobile app experience. And a lot of that explains why people are so focused in terms of trying to figure out, how can I get myself on that device? How can I get myself to be one of those 35 to 44 apps that someone's using per month?
And that point goes through a lot of other industries as well. I mean, there's a lot of different variety of products, and it's therefore harder to get your product to get in front of the consumer. It's harder to get the consumer to pay attention to that, right? But in the app universe, once you have their attention, once you become one of those 35 apps that people are actually using, they generally use it quite a bit. And I'm sure you've walked around and you've seen everyone has the phone in their hands. They have the phone in their hands at all times. I know at home, people can watch TV and they still have the phone in their hands. I've seen people literally reading a book and they've got the phone in their hands. It never changes, right? They spend a lot of time on this. So once people have decided to give their attention, they will. But what they want at that point is they want content that is going to actually appeal to them. It's going to be content that ultimately drives them and makes them feel like they want to actually engage either with a product or with the phone.
And a lot of that content we actually see when it comes to advertising is actually through video. So for us at App Annie, if we're looking at all the unique ads that we see in the space, 65% of those unique creatives are video, which is incredibly high, and that percentage has grown significantly over the last couple of years. But if you think about it, companies that are advertising very well on mobile, not only are they using video, but they're using a lot of different types of video ads, right? You have to get ads for vertical screen viewing, you have to get it for horizontal screen viewing, you have to do it for all the different types of personas, and you want to have the right video ad for that right contextual information such that when someone is viewing the ad, it makes sense for that user and for that experience.
And that makes sense. We do this a lot at home, right? If you have the phone at home, you're willing to watch a video, it's okay. You can do that. But with mobile, you realize that it's everywhere. And that content, just as Amir was saying, it has to change along with the location. And this too shouldn't be particularly surprising. We're all seeing a lot more location-based content, whether it's video content or any other type of content, but it is all now location-based and very contextual in that regard. This is going to keep going, right? Now it's getting to the point where because people, again, have this phone in their hands, they're expecting it to see whatever they're seeing. So for example, if I'm looking at this Brita picture, they're expecting the phone to start comprehending what this is and to provide content that's relevant and in context to it. That's what's happening. That's the evolution now of how consumers are paying attention to things. They're absolutely willing to pay attention. It's just that you have to give them essentially the right message in the right context and in the right location. Now, of course, they really want even more from us, right? As marketers, they want far more than just the right message at the right time. They actually want us to not be creepy, right? Seriously, they really do. So we know that broadcast television advertising was not particularly efficient. Radio, television, newspapers, that advertising went out to a whole group of people. Maybe people saw it, maybe they acted on it, we don't know. That wasn't really what was going on exactly. And the internet made it far more efficient. But people's expectations now are changing, and technology as well with ad blocks and others. But people are filtering out ads at an incredible pace. You already know this, right? You know that when you've gone to a website, looked at a red shoe, and then got an ad for it on the side of the next website, you stopped paying attention. Those ads basically got filtered out completely. That's because we are changing. Our actual attention spans might be changing, or our filters are changing.
And one of the things that we're actually seeing is over time, people are spending more time with media, but their actual share of time spent with ad-supported media is declining. In fact, many ads and the ad experience overall can be so unpleasant that their entire revenue streams, right, that exist with the sole purpose of making sure that you don't have to see ads. And that's the only difference from the service, is just, are there ads or are there no ads? I'm sure some of you may have even seen that study that came out of the UK where they're saying, hey, if they introduced ads on Netflix, the number of subscribers would decrease by 57%, right? That's how bad this is right now, and we need to change with the times.
Yeah, and the number of these free services that ultimately allow you to pay to get rid of ads, those paid subscriptions are actually on the rise. YouTube Red, Pandora, Spotify, etc. People are literally willing to spend money just to not have ads shown to them. This is so bad that actually the law is almost catching up. Now, as you guys heard, I'm a lawyer by training, and I spend a lot of time with it. And the law in general is far behind. I'll be very frank with you, right? 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years sometimes. The law is that far behind consumer expectations. But right now, we're actually seeing the law start to catch up. And the GDPR in the EU, the California Consumer Privacy Act, and who knows what else is coming down the pike. But those things are going to make ad retargeting and just that generic sharing of data in order to try to target those ads harder and harder and harder. As Erica talked about earlier, she mentioned trust. This is where it comes in. People want to actually consume marketing. They don't mind consuming marketing, but they don't want it to be creepy. They don't want to feel like you're somehow tracking them in a way that they don't understand. If you told them about it, they would be okay with it. But if you don't tell them about it, it's not okay at all. And like I said, the law is actually starting to catch up to that. So in addition to that, there's actually several new companies that are coming out with basically new business models to essentially take care of this, right? They're trying to move this forward. So one of which is called Patreon. So Patreon is the sort of P at the side. Patreon actually wants to avoid stores and marketing altogether. They're going direct to consumers to tell them, if you want a product, tell me what you want, and I'll just build it for you and send it to you. They're getting rid of all of it, right? Or you can have the Brave browser. The Brave browser is actually a blockchain system that essentially rewards publishers based upon user attention. So in essence, if I'm on the Brave browser and I'm paying attention to a publisher, that publisher is getting paid with the Brave, the basic attention token, which is again Ethereum-based blockchain technology that's essentially giving them value. They're cutting out all of the advertising middlemen. And they're doing it relatively successfully so far. It's not completely crazy successful yet, but it's getting there. And the last one are more consumer platforms that are basically just paying people directly for paying attention to ads. This is what Shopkick does. This is what a number of other companies do as well. We know that consumers want to go ahead and consume some form of marketing. They don't mind it at all. In fact, they actually want it. It's just a matter of, again, being straightforward to them and ultimately cutting them in on the deal, right? Making them feel like they're part of the ecosystem and not simply something that they're being advertised to.
Yeah, and one of the big takeaways as well is that this space is still evolving. You know, Brave browser, it's generating a couple million downloads every month worldwide. You know, Patreon, we're getting in the tens of thousands every month worldwide. So these apps are still in their infancy to some extent. You know, they're not completely mainstream, but this is the most important time for people to start thinking about apps like these and business models like these. If you wait until it becomes ubiquitous, then it's already too late at that point. You're going to be behind everyone else.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is where I think that we all need to start understanding where we think that things are going to evolve. And if we truly believe that this phone is going to ultimately become embedded in my hand, we should think about what that ultimately means. It seems kind of creepy, but we still need to think about what it ultimately means. I've been trying to think how Erica talked about that concept, and I'm trying to think of where the camera goes, right? Like whether it's right here or some other place. But we need to understand this because these are the types of business models that I think consumers are starting to understand and are starting to realize that if they can go ahead and get this direct and they don't have to go through 25 different middlemen, if they don't have to go to 5 different websites and feel like they're tracked through all of those things, if they can get the same level of service and the same products and the same marketing, they're going to do that. So as Amir said, the Brave browser and Patreon are still evolving. They're working on it, right? But in terms of getting paid right now for your attention, you can do that right now, right? At Shopkick, you can literally download the app right now and we'll give you 500 kicks, right? You can get paid $2 just for simply paying attention to this right now, because that's what you can do right now. It's that easy to make these kind of things happen. Thank you very much.